My name is Evan Brooks, and I learned early that silence is not weakness, it is camouflage. I was born in Ohio, in a town where factories closed before I finished middle school, and men learned to keep their mouths shut because complaints never paid rent. That habit stayed with me even after I grew up and stepped into polished offices with glass walls and empty promises. Before I continue next, please like and subscribe on the day everything started shifting. We were in a boardroom, tall windows, long table, bitter coffee chase. The new consultant walked in late enough to make an entrance wearing confidence like cologne. He snapped his fingers and asked if someone could get coffee. Everyone knew he meant me. I was sitting off to the side, glasses on, notebook open, quiet to him. I looked like furniture. I did not move. I stayed still, watching like I always did for 3 years. People had mistaken quiet for small. They thought because I spoke less, I knew less. They never asked how someone like me stayed through every executive reshuffle, while louder men vanished. The truth is I helped build this company before it had carpets or slogans. Back when I was 21, sleeping on an air mattress in a shared office that smelled like burnt wires, I wrote the first investor pitch. I negotiated the first software contract. I chose silence later because silence let people forget I mattered. Chase did not know any of that. Neither did Martin, our CEO. Martin used to shake my hand firmly. Lately, he barely looked at me. Success polishes faces until they no longer recognize who stood beside them at the bottom. Chase began talking about optimization and scale. He waved slides that erased whole departments with a smile. He joked about legacy weight. Every time he said it, his eyes flicked toward me. I wrote one word in my notebook: watching people underestimate what happens when you let go of your ego. You hear things others miss. You see patterns. You notice fear behind confidence. I noticed how Martin stopped interrupting Chase, how the board started repeating his words, how decisions stopped going through proper channels. By the end of the meeting, Chase called me support staff. The room laughed softly. Martin looked down at the table. I smiled, not the kind that asks permission, the kind that waits, because I was not support. I was the reason the lights were on, and they just reminded me it was time to stop pretending otherwise. That night, I opened an old folder I had not touched in years and moved the first piece back onto the board. They thought the game was already over. They were wrong. Once people stop seeing you, they start talking freely. It feels like being invisible in plain sight. I became that. Ghost interns talked near me about which managers were being cut. Analysts complained about strange vendor changes. I listened. I remembered. I checked records late at night. While the office slept, Chase rerouted contracts to outside firms owned by friends. Martin approved things without votes. Stock options shifted quietly like furniture moved in the dark. I played my role perfectly. I brought coffee. I scheduled meetings. I thanked Chase for his brilliant insights. He called me kid and champ and assistant. Behind the scenes, I was printing emails, saving change logs, tracking financial trails. I kept everything. 3 nights later, I called Aaron, my lawyer. We went to college together before law school pulled him away. I asked him to open the contingency file. He did not ask which one. There is a document people forget once success numbs them, a founder agreement buried beneath years of updates. It exists for moments when control drifts too far from responsibility. I wrote that clause myself when I was 23, and paranoid. It gave me override authority with backing, and I already knew who would back me. While Chase strutted through meetings and Martin nodded, I sent quiet messages. Old investors, people who remembered broken elevators and cold pizza. Every one of them responded with the same energy. Tell me when Chase started planning a purge, a summit, a clean future presentation. He believed he already owned tomorrow. He forgot one thing: history signs, receipts, the documents piled up. Every page felt like armor. I no longer wondered if I should act only when came faster than they expected, because the summit date was not theirs anymore, it was mine. I invited Martin for coffee, neutral ground. He talked too much. People always do. When they think they have already won, he spoke about rebranding, about moving on from the past. He said people forget founders once the numbers are big enough. I nodded, paid the bill, left. Back at my office, I rewrote the summit agenda using my old Access credentials, removed Chase feature slots, inserted executive review, locked the file. By the time assistants noticed, there was no space to reverse it. Investors started arriving, real ones, not hype hunters. Chase did not notice. He was busy rehearsing applause moments. Martin avoided my eyes. I slept well the night before. That surprised me. In the mirror that morning, I did not see anger. I saw clarity, like cleaning glass that had already cracked. The binder waited on my desk, thick, heavy, unquestionable. Every page, a quiet answer to a loud assumption. For the first time in years, I did not feel young. I felt finished waiting. The room was marble and money, lights, too warm, laughter, too thin. Chase owned. The stage slides roared about future vision. He spoke like someone who never checks foundations. Graphs floated, unsupported buzzwords stacked high. Then he joked again, called me administrative help. The laugh bounced poorly. That was the last sound I let them give him. I stood every step across the floor. Felt heavier than noise. I placed the binder on the table, looked at Martin, then Chase, and I said calmly, I own the majority of this company. No one moved. Shock. Does that one by one. I opened the truth: ownership, founder, authority, investor, backing, contractual risk. Chase tried to speak, his mouth opened. Air fell out. Martin's face collapsed. Inward recognition came too late. I revoked roles, pulled authority, ordered security. Not loud, not proud, just final control, returned to its rightful place. Not by shouting, by paperwork. The room accepted gravity, because power does not argue. When proven after the room emptied, I stayed seated, binder closed, noise gone. I remembered the first night, sleeping on office carpet, the first server crash, the first yes from someone who believed people say revenge is loud. It is not, it is precise. Chase left without sunglasses. Martin stayed silent, and I finally stood again, not the quiet kid, not the ghost, the owner. And now that you know, understand this. If someone lets you forget, they matter. Never assume. They stopped counting, because silence is not absence, it is loading. And sometimes the quietest one is holding the ending. If you like this story, please like and subscribe our channel.